These are truly dark times. Suicide Squad, good, because microtransactions. Hogwarts Legacy, best-selling game of 2023, bad, because not enough microtransactions.
We've seen headlines and videos saying that Warner Brothers looked at Suicide Squad and basically decided that in spite of everything, they actually want more live services. Thing is, we looked at the source.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't nowadays?
Of that headline, and it turns out it's actually quite a bit worse, because when executives start trying to sell the future vision of their company to investors and analysts, you get a glimpse behind the curtain, and with that, you see what those who have got the real power want, which is certainly not to support our payroll via today's sponsor, for the people over at Bellular.games, who has not actually done that well. This is fairly uncontroversial, and it does actually reflect the opinion of Warner Brothers executives during their recent financial reporting.
Oh really? Suicide Squad has not done that well. 400 people at best at this moment are left playing the game. Game crashing bugs. Missions not saved after you complete them. Loot just magically disappearing after you actually complete a mission. Nonsense storyline, nonsense this, bad gameplay. How is that not a success? It has a microtransaction store. It's a blatant success. And Season 1, by the way, is very soon upon us. Imagine the headlines. Suicide Squad, 200% player increase over new season. Wow! Yeah, that's gonna be roughly like 700 people maybe playing it about the time Season 1 releases. Because again, even the dumbest people are not playing this game because the game doesn't even save your progress, okay? You finish the game, if you can finish the game because maybe there's a bug or something, and then it just doesn't care about the stuff you do and it doesn't give you rewards. It's absolutely amazing.
But the question has been, what happens next, right? There's a lot of games that exist under the Warner Bros. Belt. They've got a lot of IP, loads of different studios, and their future is dependent on somebody having a plan. Now, to you and me, you'd probably look at, say, Hogwarts Legacy and some of their other successes and think, more of those. That seemed to go well. So it's time to find out what they actually think. This week, we had the Morgan Stanley Technology, Media and Telecoms Conference.
Hell yeah.
Thankfully, none of us were there because that sounds very boring, but who was J.B. Perrette, a Warner Bros. Discovery executive. He's basically the guy under the microscope today. He's the person who delivered the pitch for Warner Bros. Discovery as a company that investors will be following the stock for. So here, his entire mission is to sell the company to these people by showing that they have a plan for streaming, for movies, and of course for video games. Video games made up about 3 minutes of the 40-minute long Q&A, so I suppose that gives you an idea of proportionately how relevant it is. Games are kind of small fry for them, which I suppose does make sense. Maybe it also gives a little bit of context to their decision to shutter Rooster Teeth's video arm this week as well.
Man, remember when this came out? It was actually kind of okay. It was kind of good. And it didn't turn to shit like everything else in life. Those were the days, boys. Those were absolutely the days. By the way, this is my wife, who you can have the disgusting cat one. Also, what the hell is this? Seems different, but whatever.
Yeah, Rooster Teeth is gone, so that's also a thing that happened, though of course they certainly have experienced decline and drama. Now, I do have the entire transcript here that's relevant to games. What I'd rather do though is just walk through the bits that actually matter, and we can sort of talk about what's up here. They don't know where the industry is going next, but in the Q&A response, they of course name check virtual reality and AR. Okay, they mention, the Apple Vision Pro and virtual worlds.
Dude, this Apple Vision thing is so dystopic, and the best part is people are just, already gobbling up like crazy. When the Elon Musk brain implant things happens, bruh, people are gonna be lining up on the streets to get that thing instantaneously. 5% risk of death? Worth it. Absolutely worth it. Holy, this is gonna be bad. It's already bad. Like, you see someone with this. I haven't seen, thankfully, anyone on the street with this. But then again, I don't know what a street is. But in America, people constantly use this. This is like a normal day thing now. If you think scrolling on iPhones was bad, bro, okay? Some gambling addict is gonna use this on the street and just go straight into incoming traffic, okay? And this is gonna be the great filter to a degree.
Obviously, these are just things that investors and analysts will generally like to hear. I think for a lot of them, they see Apple moving into that space. And of course, Apple has nudged a lot of spaces forward. So from an investor's perspective, you could actually see, oh, look at that, a new product category. Finally, Apple are there. They're probably the herald of it being very big. Of course, to a lot of us who are a little bit more used to that tech, we can certainly see the pros and the cons. And I don't think anybody thinks that spatial computing, as they put it, is going to take off quite as fast as maybe these investors would hope. Even though, I mean,
I think it's gonna take off real fast. I mean, again, people are already accepting to this idea. The only thing that keeps people from buying this is, one, expensive. Two, if you live in a shitty neighborhood, yeah, this is not exactly the hardest thing to steal. So, it is what it is. The moment, at least, the price point gets lower, or people can afford it, everyone's gonna use this. Like,
I think the technology is pretty damn awesome and cool. Anyway, they've got 11 studios under their banner for video games, so the whole point here is to say that there's a long-term roadmap and a plan for strategic investment. So in the response, they identify 4 IPs as key assets, right? These are ones worth more than $1 billion, and those are Mortal Kombat, DC Comics, Game of Thrones, and Harry Potter. Now, this is the...
Is DC Comics worth even 5 cents at this point? Press X to doubt, because I don't know about everything else. I can kind of agree, even though I think Mortal Kombat is a little bit niche, and that's a little bit of a stretch to call it worth $1 billion. Yeah, sure, it's one of the biggest fighting games, blah blah blah. But I think that's a little bit of a stretch thing. But DC Comics, man, they're as bad as Marvel, if not worse.
I'll just quote him directly, like a sort of offending words. The challenge we've had is that historically our business has been very AAA console based. That's a great business when you have a hit like Harry Potter. It makes the year look amazing. Unfortunately, when you don't have a release or when you have disappointments, we just released Suicide Squad this quarter, which was not as strong.
Okay, so why does this matter? I have talked about this constantly, but there is a fundamental flaw in big business. Well, it's not a fundamental flaw in big business. It's a flaw for businesses that are on the stock exchange, which all of these are, obviously. And that is the fact that there is almost no circumstance where anyone can ever predict graph go down. If graph go down, you're fired. Because you're an idiot who doesn't understand graph go up. These are not predictions that you can make. So, while something like Hogwarts Legacy coming out and absolutely owning it is technically a great thing, that creates an interesting issue in the financial space for the company, as in, well, our graph was this for the year, and because of that it's like this, a noticeable percent higher, Next year, that may not happen, and then the line goes under expectations. And the moment the line goes under expectations for under-delivering, typically, the stock market reacts and says, that bad thing, now your stock worth less. So, this is kind of a double-edged sword to making as good products as, Hogwarts Legacy that sell really well. There is a double-edged sword part to all of this, crazy. I know it doesn't make sense if you don't understand finance and how businesses work, but this is an actual legitimate problem which can't really be solved because line always go up.
Just makes it very volatile. So one of the things in this space, that say investors would very much care about is volatility, right? They will, in many cases, want lower volatility. And perhaps to take an example from some other stocks to just sort of illustrate the thinking here, there are certainly stocks like Palantir or Tesla that a lot of retail investors retail investor would be like, you and me, right? Not the big institutional sort of types, where there was volatility, maybe too much for the institutional types to, to sort of be as comfortable. So that's kind of what they'd want to be showing here, right? They basically want to say that things aren't volatile. They want to say that their overall business model will provide growth and stability. They don't want a big hit and then just an absolute drought of success. Now, the thing that's
Technically, yes, but the part about volatility, ignore that. That doesn't actually matter and make sense in the context of the conversation, what's happening with Warner Brothers and all of the stock things there. It's very ignorable. The volatility matters for a lot of things, and volatility, just to summarize it in normal language, is how much can you actually predict and feel like predict on what's gonna happen, okay? The more volatility, the bigger risk of loss. Volatility is typically always a bad thing because volatility should mean it can go up, it can go down or whatever, but typically volatility in stocks usually just means down and bad things. So that's why volatility is bad, but this doesn't exactly work like this in this situation.
Core here is that from their perspective, Suicide Squad isn't a live service game. Most of the talk that you'll have heard around this is basically Suicide Squad is a live service game. It was bad. They want more live service games. They're insane. I think to them, though, Suicide Squad is a premium console game that uses the monetization techniques of a live service game, but that doesn't exactly make it a game that is ideally a live service. Now, a lot of the discussion that we've had in this channel is the example of, say, a game like Helldivers. It's overtly, right? Helldivers 2 is overtly a live service. It's designed to be a live service. Everything is in service of that. Instead of with Suicide Squad, where you had, a pretty rubbish, not particularly good premium console game with a bad live service tacked on top of it. Kind of like the worst of both worlds. And I think when you look at games like Anthem, Avengers, Suicide Squad, it's very much the worst of both worlds. What they will want here is the best of both. And that's where we're going to be talking about what they actually mean when they say live services. So, to go on to another quote here, right? They need to develop a much more holistic approach, especially in expanding into mobile and multi-plat free-to-play, which could, they say, give us better revenue and consistent set of revenue. So again, it is that consistency. Now, a game that I think illustrates this pretty well, funny enough, is Apex Legends, because it started off pretty strong. It's definitely had growing pains and issues, but they've, broadly speaking, done a really good job. Financially, though, it was very interesting watching Apex Legends. It, for a long time, was exactly what EA wanted, just nice, consistent, growing revenue. It was growing in Japan, right? That was a whole big story. Things were going really well. But then what happened is something that I think is fairly interesting. An inability to forecast whether your revenue is a spike or if it is genuinely a large increase that you should basically count on in the future, where they had essentially very great success, but
actually all of these companies predict their spikes. Spikes are not hard to predict if you're inside of this company.
They weren't able to keep it up. I forget exactly what season it was, but their revenue kind of dipped, and you basically saw them very clearly try to pump that up again with the Final Fantasy event. Now, I think for a group like Warner Bros., they'll be very weak at predicting trends, like they were very weak with Harry Potter, where seemingly they had pretty overinflated expectations for Suicide Squad. For me, the other thing there is, think about EA and Apex. Their revenue is going down, so what can you start to do? You can do events, promotions, all of these things surrounding a game you're already running, instead of having
they do a lot of promotions and things like that. That's true.
To make a new AAA console game that'll come out next year and hopefully be good. So you can kind of see why they want these forever live services, where to get the money up rather than make a whole new game, they just need to run very successful events. Anyway, they've got mobile games coming out this year.
Not true. Not necessarily true. I mean, it can be true. It is technically a take that happens, obviously, but not necessarily true. It's not like the big thing that all of them are actually concerned about constantly. There are other bigger things. All of those things, the events and whatnot, they're planned at specific points, so their quarterly earnings and whatnot look better and things like that.
To start that ball rolling, and then they talk about basically what they want the business to be. I'll go back to a quote. Rather than just launching one-and-done console games, how do we develop a game around, for example, Hogwarts Legacy or Harry Potter, that is a live service where people can come together to live and work and build and play in a world in an ongoing basis? Yes, funny enough, everyone just wants their own version of World of Warcraft with loads of microtransactions, right? Anyway, he ends the pitch on essentially a reframe here, right? Reframing a literal best-selling game like Harry Potter or Hogwarts Legacy as being too risky of a prospect because it might not succeed. And that's basically the point. They don't want Hogwarts Legacy big spikes, sometimes rarely. They want Harry Potter, line go up forever, right? And ultimately, it makes sense that was talked about here because this was at a Morgan Stanley conference that is obviously all about investors, right? For a lot of these guys, what do they look at? They look at Epic Games and Fortnite. They also look at Roblox. That being said, I do want to just laugh at Roblox for a second. So, yeah, there's the line. As you can see, very much trading sideways.
This is interesting. What happened here, I wonder? Because I have no idea. I don't follow stuff like this.
Over the last while. Anyway, yeah, I just thought that was kind of amusing. But again, with Roblox, the whole point here, right, is you could almost say, in the past, what were a lot of things about? Well, they were about owning land, investing in, say, things that you put on that land, and that's how you make money, right? Sort of talking, 1800s, 1900s thinking. Nowadays, though, that land is in people's brains. So for them, rather than running shops or anything like that, no, they are kind of buying land, buying attention in your brain so that you are living and working and playing in their virtual realm. It's kind of like the modern version of land, and I suppose, yes, we pay some rent to that in the form.
That makes kind of sense. Actually, an agreeable point, even, I would like to say. I get it.
For microtransactions, it's all rather lovely, but for the likes of Roblox, that is genuinely the business model. Now, for the investor class, they then will look at what
Oh, that was some kind of glitch in that clip.
Mr. Bob Iger and co are doing over at Disney, where there's the whole epic Disney World thing that they're doing for all of their franchises to have virtual experiences in there. Now, of course, Warner Brothers has got...
God, I hate Marvel, honestly, at this point. Look at all of this. Is this like a new thing, by the way? The Rainbow Captain fucking America in all of this garbage? I hate it so much. Also, Deadpool, they put him in here. You can see him somewhere. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I hate all of this. They take these things that people like because it's that thing, and they make it into a product. Star Wars is no longer Star Wars, it's a fucking product. Marvel is no longer Marvel, it's a stupid product. Spider-Man is no longer Spider-Man, it's a brand, okay? And they're obviously gonna try and label that brand on, well, as many things as humanly possible, and that's how things go bad. That's how everything gets corporatized. Can't pronounce that word today. Okay, skipping it. That's how everything goes to shit, essentially, okay? Deadpool is no longer Deadpool. He's just, some random guy in a red suit because he's not special in any way if you put him in everything. Oh, man. This is how they kill everything that's good. And this is why new stuff arrives and actually wins. Because there comes a time when you see Deadpool in too many things, and so it becomes a brand and it's no longer interesting. It's not like, oh my god, it's Deadpool. It's just like, oh, it's that guy again.
World thing that they're doing. Now, of course, Warner Brothers has got intellectual property to rival some of Disney's. So why can they not just make a game?
Warner Brothers has not been rivaling Disney forever.
Game that has people living inside Hogwarts, Westeros, Gotham, right? Constantly offering them new...
The House of the Dragon is good, but who's actually watching House of the Dragon? I mean, after Game of Thrones, the last 3 seasons were so absolutely shit trash tier, who cares? I watched House of the Dragon. It was fantastic, honestly, in my opinion. Really good. Now the second season's coming up. It's going to also be really good, probably. But who cares at this point? You have something like Game of Thrones that's so good, then the last 3 seasons literally just forces you to open your mouth. They rip open your jaw and just take a nice steamy dump down your throat. You kind of stop caring. You kind of really stop caring.
Ways to spend money in a game that will never end. So that's basically the point. $70 is not enough money. Like, people keep on saying, oh my god, I can't believe games have got so expensive. $70 for
Oh shit, it's Altered Instinct Shaggy. Oh, dude, whatever's happening here's not gonna end well.
This kind of...
I also have no idea what this diversity hire even is.
Business model is. They don't give a shit about that. What they want is $700 across an entire year from somebody. And you might think that's kind of insane and crazy, but again, that's where I go back to that analogy about the land, right?
Wait, I just got it. It's Arya Stark, isn't it?
That analogy.
Yep. I think it is. Wow, that is disgusting. Still better than the real deal, though.
About the land, right? About, you know, in the old days, people are buying land, investing in land, getting workers to work in the land, blah, 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 and that's how they end up making the money. In this case, though, it's not about you going and spending $70 or going and, say, buying a coffee. No, this is you having a coffee subscription so that you are worth to that company however much a year in, like, committed, predictable spending. That's kind of like the point here. So they want you to be paying your, I don't know, your J.K. Rowling rent to Warner Bros. And that's what they want. Why have $70 like once every few years from an IP where you can have, I don't know, 150 a year, 200 a year? That's the entire plan. So the framing here is that...
By the way, if you're thinking that it's stupid that these companies are looking at something like Hogwarts Legacy that sells literal tens of millions of copies, and that I don't know if Bellier doesn't exactly understand this, or what. But yeah, how these companies look at these things, it's you have Hogwarts Legacy that costs like 60, 70 bucks or whatever, and it and it sells 20 million copies. That's a lot of money, okay? And then you have something like Suicide Squad that doesn't sell a single thing, right? How are these things actually beneficial to the company? Well, the key is they're actually not. Again, big business is a scary thing, and it's a complicated thing. One of the craziest things that happens in big business is this. You have your department that's job is X whatever. The finance department later checks out your budget and your own predictions for what you're going to do and how much you're going to improve next year, and then they approve it or say more. And typically, these things are tied with bonuses. If you fulfill your budget as a department, well, you get a little bit of that sweet ka-ching, right? Very important. So, what big companies also do like this is one of the craziest things ever, but it's kind of hilarious and it's big brain. Everyone smart does it. Everyone who's successful in these companies does it, by the way. It's like this. If it's like, for example, it doesn't matter what you're selling, what you're doing, or whatever. If you have fulfilled your budget already, for example, mid-year, you have fulfilled, or you know you're going to fulfill it in like one or two more things, people don't do anything else, okay? The moment the budget is fulfilled, all the smart people tell their departments, okay, we're not doing anything big now. Well, they don't obviously say that, but they don't do anything big. Why? It's so line doesn't go up too much. Yeah. Because if line goes up too much because of some miracle that you accidentally pulled off, guess what? Next year, line is going to be again expected to go up this much. And that's a crazy thing. And the more the line goes up, the harder it is for you to get that sweet, sweet bonus. So it's not actually in your interests that the line goes up, which is hilarious.
Suicide Squad didn't work out commercially because that was Rocksteady and Warner Brothers leadership commissioning a game that did not have enough foresight. That it was basically just a kneecapped AAA, like, traditional game with a kneecapped live service bolted onto it, which is why it felt like such an outdated just model of game. Their point is that they should have been making a live service platform that people could spend their lives and their wallets on anywhere. So instead of it being, Suicide Squad, kill the Justice League, no, it is Gotham and Metropolis, and I don't know, somehow is just something you can play basically forever. I'm sure if you were a City of Heroes fan, that this is all rather hilarious to you. Anyway, I do think that in many ways this is far worse, right? This is worse than the idea that they just want to double down on regular live service games. This is basically saying that they would rather abandon a lot of the very authored content, a lot of the game experience as we know it, and then...
Not really. They would just most likely want to change them.
Transition it into just more of an ongoing...
Because keep in mind also, no one in a company, including the CEO, well, sometimes including the CEO, doesn't want line going up too much. Because you need to understand, CEO gets their rewards and stock options and all of those things. And the CEO is is the CEO, if they know one thing, that is the fact that they know when line go up, and that's when you under-deliver. So, they don't want line going up too much, unless they're actually selling their stuff or they're going away. Because in all the companies where you see the CEOs going away, or change of power or something like that, you always typically see them trying to sell the company as the best thing in the future and blah blah blah, so they can cash out the most in stocks, which is kind of hilarious. But yeah, this is how gaming works, because it's a business at the end of the day. And anyway, that was Billiard News, and that's it. This was Quizzer Sensei, and thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye bye.